Looking for a place to watch all the games with your buddies this football season? You've got to stop by Long Neck Sports Grill. There are 3 locations, each one of them with 4K TVs all over the place, and the sound is always on for the big games. And you've heard me talk about Long Neck's menu, but have you tried the wings? What are you waiting for? And no place has a better beer selection than Long Neck's. And don't forget, Long Neck Sports Grill is also home of the Roundtable Show. Wilder, Hebron, and Richwood, each one of them awesome. Long Neck Sports Grill. This football season, stay late. Come often. We do this on Wednesdays. We chat with one of the experts from OrthoCincy Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. And of the many things we love about OrthoCincy, they have specialists and locations all over the tri-state. They also offer orthopedic urgent care at 5 tri-state locations on a walk-in basis. That's right. You can walk in, and they've got extended evening and weekend hours in Edgewood and Anderson. Learn more at OrthoCincy.com. That's OrthoCincy.com. This week, Dr. John Fritch from OrthoCincy is with us. Let's talk about Tee Higgins. Suffered a rib fracture on at least one of his ribs. He's not practicing today. He has at least hinted that he could try to go on Sunday. Let's start with this, a rib fracture. How is an injury like this treated?
Yeah, absolutely. So painful injury to see, especially with Tee, one of the top weapons. With these rib fractures, they're almost always treated without a surgery because most of these heal up just fine on their own. Unless someone has multiple rib fractures that impair their ability to breathe, then sometimes you consider a surgery, but that wasn't the case for Tee. With these non-operative treatments, they involve controlling their pain, sometimes with different nerve blocks, making sure his ribs are well padded up and splinted so that he doesn't re-injure it.
So obviously he says he's going to try, and we'll see how the week of practice unfolds, but he's going to try maybe to play through the injuries. So what's the risk of further injury if he does give it a go?
Yeah, and so in these first couple of weeks, he's at a little higher risk of re-injuring the area, particularly with a direct hit or anything. If we take a look at our data, especially with NFL players, in general, from these rib fractures, usually they're out somewhere between 2 to 4 weeks, just giving them the appropriate amount of time to be able to heal this up enough that they can, so to speak, play through the pain, but without re-injuring it.
If he does give it a go, what can you do to minimize further injury, to mitigate the pain, or to keep this from being a bigger issue?
Yeah, so they're going to certainly help protect him a little better. They may add some pads to his outfit. Nowadays, they have rib protection kind of built into their garments, which they may use. Also, try to make sure his pain's under control. In some cases, they'll even do localized nerve blocks to kind of numb up the area so it doesn't hurt quite so much.
In a sport like this, where there are so many hits to the midsection, is it at all surprising to you that we don't hear about more significant rib injuries in football?
I mean, I think that we just don't always hear about them, to be quite honest. I think Tee is one of the key and central players, so obviously we heard about it this time. I think it's a lot more common for people to get contusions to their ribs and not necessarily see a definitive fracture, although those are treated the same way. They might not be talked about quite as much.
Let me ask you about Kyler Murray of the Cardinals, who's not going to play against the Bengals, suffered a serious knee injury back in December. He is not back, and I think sometimes unfairly what we do is we compare time frames, right? So Joe Burrow suffered that massive knee injury late November 2020, was on the field week 1 the following season. No 2 injuries, no 2 bodies are the same, and so I guess we shouldn't do that. But I think for a lot of folks, it is alarming that he's still not back yet. Von Miller suffered a knee injury, same time frame, late last season, due to play this week for the Buffalo Bills. What causes an injury like this to keep a player out longer than others who suffer, we'll call it comparable injuries?
Yeah, so I agree with you completely, Mo. Not all 2 injuries are made the same. And although I'm a Joey B fan, and I want to say he was just tough enough to get out there earlier, realistically, when it comes to these injuries, it takes a while. Our guidelines tell us that at minimum, these players need to be out for 9 months before contact sports. And that's regarding just ACL surgery. Kyler had his MCL repaired as well, which probably adds some time to the timeline. And specifically, these guidelines state that these players have to be able to perform all the functions they need to in their job to appropriately protect themselves. And so it's about constant reevaluation, making sure that Murray is able to appropriately maneuver the field, protect himself, and has the strength to protect against an additional injury. And I guess he just hasn't reached that point quite yet.
I want to ask you one baseball question. Dr. John Fritch from OrthoCincy is with us. Obviously, the Red season is over. Toward the end, we were hoping that Matt McLain would come back. He suffered a grade 2 right oblique strain toward the end of August and was working his way back, and we had hoped he would be ready to go by the end of the regular season and then re-aggravated the injury in a second minor league rehab game. And so, obviously they're in the offseason, and there's a ton of time for him to rest and get ready for next year, and hopefully that happens. Explain the grade scale for oblique strains for me.
Yeah, of course. And so the grading has to do with muscular strains or just muscular tears in general. Grade 1 being, if you take a look at the MRI, there's no appreciable tearing to the muscle itself. Grade 2 has some partial tearing, not torn all the way through. And grade 3 means the whole muscle unit is torn through. So he was grade 2 and so had some partial tearing, which is pretty common for these oblique strains.
It feels to me, and this is a generalization, but it feels to me like oblique injuries always last longer than the minimum injured list stint, 10 days or 15 days. Why is that?
The biggest reason is re-injury, and particularly in baseball, those players are at highest risk of re-injuries of these obliques. I mean, they're really engaging their core throughout the game and everything they do. If we take a look at the research behind it, it seems to show that up to 12% of these, which is probably an underestimation, re-injure themselves within the early recovery period.
Obviously, unfortunately, the Reds aren't playing, so there's no need to get him back on the field anytime soon. Spring training is more than 4 months away. Should there be concerns that this could be something that lingers and maybe compromises his ability to start the season on time?
Absolutely. I mean, given the fact that he's already had one re-injury that kept him from the end of the season, there's concerns about that. However, I think that fortunately there's enough time on the calendar here that ultimately he'll have the time to rest this, appropriately rehab it, and there won't be any push to really push him too hard before this is fully healed.
Awesome insight as always, Dr. John Fritch from OrthoCincy. We'll do it again soon, man. Thanks so much.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Mo.
You got it, Dr. John Fritch from OrthoCincy.com. I say this every single week. The awesome thing about OrthoCincy is they have specialists and locations all over the tri-state. This includes walk-in orthopedic urgent care during the week from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Both Edgewood and Anderson, it is easier because you never need an appointment, and it goes without saying it's cheaper and more convenient than going to an ER when you have an urgent orthopedic injury. Go to OrthoCincy.com. That's OrthoCincy.com. If you're a football fan, you've got to stop by Long Neck Sports Grill. There's no better place to watch all the games with your buddies, whether it's college or pro. There are 4K TVs all over the place, and the sound is always on for the big games. Long Neck's menu is awesome, and you've got to try the wings, and you're not going to find a better beer selection than what they've got at Long Neck's. Plus, don't forget, Long Neck's is also home of the Round Table Show. There are 3 locations in northern Kentucky, Wilder, Hebron, and Richwood. This football season, Long Neck Sports Grill, stay late, come often.